Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning in. And this video, we've covered some other topics, but this one's going to be on the first 2 weeks and kind of what you can expect. It's a lot. It's not hell, but it's, like Maria has said, a whirlwind. And this video isn't meant to...
A lot of unknowns too, really. At the beginning, there's so many unknowns that... Yeah, I just felt like I didn't want to get out of bed and I wanted to cry and a lot of emotions, definitely.
Yeah, it's tough because, and like I said, this isn't meant to scare anybody. It's meant to let you know you're not alone and it's tough. I think I might have said in another video, I'm not sure. I was talking to a friend one day. His son had been diagnosed and he said, it's getting an invitation to the worst party you never wanted to be invited to. And I think that really sums it up. Excuse me, sorry. So the first 2 weeks, and if your child is ever diagnosed, again, this is Courtney's journey with ALCL, anaplastic large cell lymphoma, ALK positive, and everybody's journey is going to be a little different. We found out November 14th. I was at work. I called them and said they think Courtney's been diagnosed with cancer. And the next day it was off and running, I guess. Our doctor said, we're going to be meeting with some doctors at Seattle Children's. So we called up to Seattle Children's the next day. And I guess to back up a little bit too, we didn't know that she had ALCL. The first CT scan and everything that came out, we had thought that they had thought it was potentially a bone cancer. So we've learned there's hard tumors, soft tumors, and brain tumors, and that's kind of how they separate it in the three. And so at first they thought Courtney, the lesion they saw was on her ribs, and they thought it was a hard tumor, bone, maybe a Ewing sarcoma. So we'd got put into teams, is how at Seattle Children's they break you into teams. And we talked to this one doctor first. She was very nice. And we had to start scheduling another CT and MRI to try to figure out what this was. So before, we had made our way up to Seattle Children's. So the 14th, by the 17th, we were up there. And a little backstory as well, if you don't know us and you're following this around along on YouTube, and a lot of people on Facebook didn't know, we had a family vacation plan to Hawaii that we were supposed to take off on the 20th. And it was Maria's mom's 70th and their 50th wedding anniversary. And then it was going to be a fun family vacation. And instead we were there for Courtney, trying to figure out what's going on with our daughter. So by the time we had made it up there, they had already kind of made the determination that this was going to be a soft tumor.
They didn't know that to the biopsy.
Right. Well, but they had a good suspicion because we had already changed teams once. So we had already changed doctors from the bone or from the hard tumor to the soft tumor team. And we met with these two doctors. And we're not going to try to disparage anybody or talk bad either, but a lot of this is advocating for your kids if you have to go through and walk this journey. So Courtney went up and we had our first visit with one of the fellows and then scheduled a CT and an MRI. So that was within the first 5 days. We'd already been up at Seattle Children's maybe 3 times. And Courtney did awesome on her first CT and MRI. They were very nice up at Seattle Children's. They had let us sit with Courtney in the MRI, in the room, and in the CT, so she wasn't alone, and hearing those loud machines going. And she did well in your IVs. Anything scary about that time?
About what?
The CT and the MRI?
No, it was just kind of boring.
Okay. And were you nervous at that point as far as what was going on, or?
I think I kind of, like, in the beginning when we said that I might have cancer, I was, like, very nervous. then, like, I think my brain was just, like, in shock for a little bit, so I wasn't really feeling anything.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's kind of a lot of us. I think we were all in shock. And like Maria said, there was a lot more maybe tears from our side too, trying to figure out what's going on. And there's a lot of resources too. So as the story goes on, now we've gone through the CT and the MRI, and they had now a good idea that it was some type of lymphoma. They didn't think it was leukemia, the bone cancers, but they needed to do a bone marrow biopsy. So that was scheduled for the following week.
Not just bone marrow, they did a regular biopsy, a bone marrow.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Nope,
that's
placement
correct.
and the lumbar.
No, right. But prior to the bone marrow biopsy was a normal biopsy. So Courtney went in, was put under anesthesia, and they took out a chunk, you're right, of the tumor that's on her ribs. From that, and that was about 3 days after the CT and the MRI. And then they found out that it was...
Well, originally they told us they thought they would be able to tell us what it was.
Correct.
When they did that biopsy. But of course, hers was super rare and they didn't know. It ended up taking probably another week till we finally got the final diagnosis that it was ALCL.
Yeah, we didn't know until she went almost right in for chemo. So she had the back surgery biopsy after the CTs, after the MRIs, and then the following week, I think it was 6 days later, she had a bone marrow biopsy, lumbar puncture, and a port placement. And so those were all to be scheduled under one thing. So again, we're still within the 2-week time frame of finding out the diagnosis, or still trying to figure out the diagnosis.
Not knowing what it was, we were still super hopeful that it wasn't cancer, but they're also asking you if you want to do fertility salvation. So that was super emotional and hard for us to figure out. But thankfully, the drugs that she's on, I guess there's a rating of how much of certain drugs you can have before it really affects their fertility. And if she makes it through these 6 rounds and we can get her back in remission, then it's supposedly not supposed to affect her fertility too much.
Correct. And so that's another excellent point, was throughout this whole thing. So we're driving back and forth to Seattle Children's, which is an hour to 2 hours, depending on traffic from our house. And in between Courtney's back biopsy and the lumbar punctures and bone marrow biopsies, we're calling fertility people to see if it's covered by insurance. And again, just an added thing of, holy crap, what are we dealing with? Something you never thought a week and a half prior we were going to be having to worry about our daughter's ability to have kids later on of her own, and how that was going to affect her. So it's hard to even try to convey, and I hope this helps some people out there, that everybody's journey is going to be different, but all this is just coming screaming at you, and you're making life-changing decisions, sometimes without feeling like you're even getting all the information that you're supposed to be getting. Some of it going to, as well, like with the fertility, was we had already not been very excited about the 2 doctors that we had been given. When you get issued a team, the team is based on what type of cancer it is and your last name. So you just kind of get put into the system. And again, Seattle Children's has been great working with them. And we weren't trying to say anything bad about the initial doctors we had, but and we had great conversations with them. We just didn't feel they were the right ones for Courtney. They hadn't dealt with ALCL, a lot of doctors hadn't, and they were new to the area and kind of new to the whole lymphoma, leukemia side of things. We were able to advocate for Courtney to get another doctor, which we are very happy with. Her name is Dr. Rivers out of Seattle Children's. And prior to us even getting to have her, one of the hiccups, and again, this isn't to say anything against Seattle Children's, but the lumbar puncture, bone marrow day, and when she's getting the port placement, all three were supposed to get done in one time, so Courtney doesn't have to keep getting put under the knife and put under general anesthesia. They came into the room with us, and Courtney doesn't know much better. Maria and I are trying to be strong for her, and at first they say, and this is, mind you, is after we've talked to a doctor once and had emails and phone conversations and were assured that everything was scheduled. They said they didn't have the lumbar puncture ready, and they didn't know if they were going to be able to find somebody to do it. Wow. As a parent, that was a little unnerving. We played cool. But then a nurse for the team came in, and she just said to us, Mom and Dad, this is very important. It's not in the notes that she is accessed or remains accessed. That's where the external part of the port is in there, because she starts chemo in 48 hours and they can't reaccess a new port within 5 days. So in order for her to start her chemotherapy, Mom and Dad, you need to make sure to tell the surgeon and the anesthesiologist that she remains accessed. It was a little hard to keep Maria from not jumping across the room and maybe killing the messenger. But that was really hard. With everything that's going on in your life and these decisions, just know that there could be hiccups along the way. Again, Seattle Children's was doing a great job. We trust them with Courtney's health. But even within their system, a great hospital like that, make sure as a parent you are staying on top of it and advocating for your children every step of the way.
Something I think that could have helped with Courtney and us, since we really didn't know anything about port placement, is if child life would have been brought in sooner. We had never heard of child life, and they didn't come till after Courtney's port was placed. But if they could have came in, they have this great mannequin, and they show you actually a port taken apart. If they could have came in and done that part before the surgery, I think it would have made all of us probably feel a lot more comfortable. So if you somehow fall through the cracks, make sure you ask for child life, because I think it'll help you on your journey a little bit sooner.
Yeah, they've been phenomenal. And I think we had mentioned in the last video, but Courtney, they're one of your favorites still, huh?
Yeah.
And again, the nurses are awesome. Our attending physician, Dr. Rivers, she's incredible. But your nurses, you change a lot. You get different nurses. Child's life seems like it's the same 2 or 3, and they're very comforting. They know Courtney. They know she loves sea animals. They know her fears. They know it makes her happy, and they're just incredible. And so that exactly, and I think some of what the speed at which they started to figure out Courtney's type of lymphoma, the stage it was at, and wanting to get chemo started, all of a sudden it went from, well, this might not be the worst, and it's, we can take our time, to, nope, we need to have you guys in next week. So it ramped everything up. They maybe did things a little faster than they normally would have.
It was also Thanksgiving week too, so.
Yep, it was Thanksgiving week. So yeah, I mean, really, in that time frame of finding out, and then 2 days after her, so within a week, she'd had 2 surgeries, port placements. She still hasn't had meds to feel good. She's feeling like absolute crud. And finally, the day that we were going in for chemo, her poor little body had already gone through so much. And she was just lying on her couch crying, saying how bad she just wanted to finally get to the hospital to start feeling better, huh? Mm-hmm. And it did.
And the weather didn't help.
and then the weather didn't help. There was fog, and it was a 3-hour, said it was going to be 3 hours.
After port placement, the leaking into the house.
Yeah, that was more, but that's not any, that was our journey. We had a water leak in our house. But so I hope, just know, if it is an invitation that you never wanted to get, but if you get it, be ready for the first 2 weeks. Ours was literally, like we said, finding out Seattle Children's, we're up there within the next couple of days, CTs, MRIs, biopsies of the tumor, more biopsies, lumbar punctures, bone marrow biopsies, port placements, chemotherapy starting.
Oh, I also do want to say, if your child is 13, try to get access to their email. The problem was we were locked out of Courtney's account because of privacy issues. So that was something we were like, we can't get into my charts to read what was coming up back from the doctors and stuff. So that added to extra confusion as well.
That can be exactly, but depending on the state that you may be living in, Washington state laws, 13-year-old girl, or you might see our dog walking in over there. 13-year-olds have complete control over their records, which is, I think, ridiculous. She doesn't even know hardly what's going on. She's asking us all the time, and yet she had to give us access, even though we have to sign to grant the doctors permission to work on our daughter. She has complete control over her charts and who sees them and that sort of thing. Just ridiculous. But again, in your state, wherever, if you're watching this somewhere else, that might not be an issue. So anyway, yep, there goes our doggy.
She's like, I want to be in the video.
Yep, Kona, come down here. Come here.
She wants the photobomb.
So sorry, this has been kind of a long one, but it was a lot, and after we're done, there'll probably be a lot more that we forgot about. But again, if you haven't followed Courtney's journey on Facebook, go over and follow it there. Courtney Strong, Courtney with a K. Do you have anything to add, honey?
No.
The 13-year-old that needs to grant me access. Yes, Gabby.
A lot of people have been saying like they could not find it.
Okay.
So.
Okay, we'll throw a link in the description.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Gabby, for Courtney Strong. And thanks again, everybody, for all of your love and support and your donations and everything throughout this time. Honestly, it has helped us tremendously. And even today, I was at the grocery store, and 2 or 3 people stopped me and just offered their love, support, and anything else they could do. So thanks to everybody. And the next one should be kind of, at least not a fun one, but we're going to talk about prepping for those first nights. And Maria had contacted some people prior to about the creature comforts that you need for your room. And we'll go over everything and leave links that if this is happening to you, you're not going to have to worry about it. So thanks again, you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.